Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you weren't here this morning, my name is Colin Carter. I'm a director of the Giannini Foundation of Agricultural Economics, and I'm pleased this afternoon to introduce California Governor Jerry Brown. Governor Brown has shown true international leadership on the climate change issue. Please join me in welcoming Governor Jerry Brown.
Thank you. You know, you're only supposed to give short introductions to the president. There's a lot more to be said here, but I understand. So, but it is good to be here and talking about this very important topic, agriculture, climate change, California's future. California is right at the, I almost would say, the epicenter of climate change. If you look at maps that are generated, you can see that the entire Southwest is in a very red area. Now, what this map represents is a relative change from the past. So it's by each of the different parts of the country, but in almost all the parts of the country, especially in California, the temperature is rising, the average temperatures, and that has an effect. As the soil is drier, then it's easier for forest fires, and we're seeing that now. As a matter of fact, we have twice the forest fires in California this year than we have normally. In addition to that, our fire season is 70 days longer than historically, and that means we need fire crews on all the time. It also means that there's cost, there's danger, there's impact to not only urban areas, but grasslands and agricultural areas. But we adapt. We have to adapt because the climate is changing. Now, there's no doubt that the evidence, it's been strong for quite a while. It's getting even stronger. And now with the fifth report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, with the national assessment that just came out within the last few weeks, with the assessment this morning on the effect of climate and the weather on California agriculture, and then recently the reports on the West Antarctic glacier and ice shelf. The report that the change in the West Antarctic ice shelf is irreversible. And whether it's a few hundred years or longer than that, there's an inevitable increase in sea level. And that increase in sea level will have impacts on water quality, on agricultural practices in exposed areas. So we got to get to work on it. And in that respect, we have both taking action to reduce climate change and then action to adapt, to change the infrastructure, change the use of water and crops and everything else. And this is going to be a long-term challenge, and I hope the people that gather here come up with some good paths forward on what we can do. In California, of course, we have AB 32, which is the most far-reaching measure to deal with climate change anywhere in the United States. And not only do we have that, but we're implementing it in a very imaginative way. I was able to sign the law that requires a third renewable electricity in California. We're well on our way. We're at 23%. We have probably now in the state over 70,000 electric vehicles. We have the toughest building standards, and we're tying all this together with an integrated plan to reduce the carbon emissions. And the carbon emissions in California are close to 450 million tons a year, and we're going to reduce that to 425 by 2020, and we're already planning to go beyond that, because by the time we get to 2050, we have to reduce to something in the neighborhood of 75 tons, and there's no known technology on how to get there today. There are a lot of things that are implicated in climate change, whether it's deforestation in Brazil or Mexico, or whether it's the transportation sector in America, and in California in particular. That's 40%. So the cars in California, the vehicles, all 32 million of them, go, last year, as an indication, went 332.2 billion miles. And we're on track to add another 25 billion miles by the year 2020. So that's a huge challenge, a huge demand for gasoline and oil products, unless we can reduce the vehicle miles traveled and substitute renewable energy in the place of fossil fuels. That is an enormous challenge, but California is actually committed to moving down that path of aligning our economy and our way of life in California with the demands of nature as we now understand them scientifically. So there's a transition here. We can't do this overnight. When you're propelling that many vehicles, that many billions of miles. In fact, I was just thinking as I came down here this afternoon, this is almost a billion miles driven every day, somewhere between 900 million miles and a billion. That's huge. And to make that transition is going to take political will, it's going to take investment, and it's going to take the support of the people of the state and ultimately the people of the country, because we can't do it alone. And California is not acting alone. We've already signed agreements with Washington and Oregon, British Columbia, with China. I'm leading a delegation to Mexico in July to seek the same kinds of agreements to work on collaborative efforts to reduce the generation of heat-trapping gases. It's a many-sided challenge. It's not like one thing you can do, and it's the kind of challenge that often doesn't capture the same imagination that momentary events. If something is discrete and it happens, like a forest fire or an accident or a tornado, it's easy to grasp and we can react to it. But when we have the buildup of these heat-trapping gases globally, and then you say, what do we do? And this is the kind of challenge where it's not just California. We're 1% of the problem. We have to get other states and other nations on a similar path forward. And that is enormously difficult because it requires different jurisdictions, different political values to unite around this one challenge of making a sustainable future. And we're not on a sustainable path. We are making progress. Today I was briefed by the scientists involved in the intergovernmental panel on climate change, and some of the scientists point out how much progress has been made in the Amazon rainforest in reducing greenhouse gases, the equivalent of 10 times what AB 32 would produce in California. So that's a positive, that another place in the world is taking very bold steps. But two problems with that. Those bold steps can be eroded by practices that are building up by pressures, whether it be in the consumption of meat or the consumption of soybeans. All this leads to reducing the rainforest, generating more greenhouse gases. And so that's that. And then the second point, of course, is can we all collaborate together? And in Sacramento, we have plenty of challenges here, whether it be on the amount of spending, the kind of spending, different regulations that people are concerned about. This is really a complex set of pressures that are not easy to talk about in a soundbite, a bumper sticker, or a one-liner. But nevertheless, the people as a whole, and I say the people all over the world, but California in many ways leading the way, have to be able to support a series of moves over a long period of time. So this is a path that must be pursued today, the next decade, the next 100 years. And it's something that is yet to fully capture the public imagination. There's still great denial. I noticed I made a comment the other day that virtually all the Republicans in Congress are deniers of climate change. And then I also said that climate change is implicated in the dry season, 3 driest years we've had historically, and that contributes to forest fires. So then somebody said, well, Brown says the Republicans caused the forest fires. Well, that's the kind of defective logic that gets in the way of serious effort to combat what is a real existential threat to all of our individual and collective well-being. So agriculture is a key area. We're working through the conflicts between agriculture, north and south, the fish, the habitat, and the total system. And it's not as though one side gets to win, because we're in an interdependent kind of system where we're both competitive and dependent. And if we wipe out key elements of the ecosystem, then we undermine the basis of our own living and well-being. So this is a new kind of challenge. It's not us against them. It's us in the environment taking account of the complex demands that being a part of something called the ecosystem is. So I just wanted to be a part of what you're doing today. Agriculture is part of it. I happen to have a ranch where last year the temperature went over 100 degrees in 35 days. So I know what heat looks like. The rattlesnakes like it. But it's not so easy to manage, particularly if somebody throws the cigarette butt out their window. So we're looking forward to, we got a lot of work to do, but California is in the forefront. It's going to stay in the forefront, and we have lots to do in each of the different areas that make up our program and policy to live with nature, not to collide with it, but to get on the side of it, because these are the rules that we have to live by. So good luck in the proceedings, and you can be sure that we're going to be steadfast in the state of California in doing everything we need to do to make agriculture work, to use our water as carefully as possible, and to make sure what we do we stick with over the years and decades that are required. Thank you very much.